My name is Eugenie Doyle. I'm a parent of graduates of the school and grandmother of future students as soon as they get out of diapers, and volunteer and taxpayer. So I assume that pretty much sums up everybody here in one of those categories, or many of those categories. Just a very brief history of what brought this meeting about. 10 days ago, I got a call, several calls from Starksboro Save Our Schools organization, indicating that at a board meeting the night before, it was mentioned that Starksboro was off the chopping block for closure and Monkton was on. And I'm sure by now many of you have looked at the recording of that meeting. So Starksboro was not indicating any glee at this happening, and just as we never expressed any glee when they were on the chopping block. So we, in the past 10 days, have organized, we immediately got in touch with our school board members. They are all here tonight, and they graciously agreed to come, explain maybe how that happened and where we go from here, and especially to listen. Everybody here is a resource for them. They are our elected officials. It doesn't always seem that way because now the meetings are all in Bristol. When the meetings of the school board were in this gym, it was easier to get to meetings and more people showed up. But that's the way things are now. And so this meeting is an attempt to bring home what they call community engagement and have it actually right here. And hopefully that will be a help to them, and it will be a help to us to express our sentiments. So our three board members are here. Kylie Pelland, can you just stand up, the three of you? Okay, here we are. Okay, great. Justin Pearson and Barb Crandall. They're right here. Also with us today are our state reps, Herb Olson in the back, also on the Starksboro School Board, and Karen Luters in the back over there, Lincoln resident and our state rep. And is Senator Heffernan here? Okay, yes, oh, excellent, wonderful. I saw you in a suit. The last time I saw you, you were all in a suit. Okay, so they are all here to listen, and that's take advantage of that opportunity. It doesn't always happen that our representatives listen to us, but they really are. And I'm going to turn this over to Emily McManamy, who was a former president of the PTO, still an active participant in the PTO, and a member of our ad hoc Monkton Save Our Schools group, which this, for the past 10 days, hopefully it'll include everybody, but for the past 10 days has included Devin Mason, who designed our website amazingly in just a couple of days. I don't know how that happens. Jane Lowe, sitting here, and you'll hear from her in a few minutes. Joan Holloway, who I think has the distinction, or unless Nina is here, of having had a child in the school for 25 solid years, right? Okay. Nina Badger also. John Dunham is here, set up all the chairs. And Allie Gomez and Callie Bryn, responsible for the refreshments. We never have meetings without refreshments. And let's see, and I said Callie, right? Okay. Oh, and Larkin Brown, who organized the daycare, or whatever you call it, evening care, in the library. We also, or if grown-ups want to go over there. It is a really, really nice library for any of you who have not been in there. Yeah, so, and also for the information of people who might not be here, I know it's school vacation week, some people are going to be away. Cal Hopwood is here recording the meeting. We don't have a Zoom option, but he's recording it. And it will be available on neatbristol.com, and just go to video on demand. So it will be available there. And then before I hand this over to Emily, I just wanted to say that I always think in these school discussions of a legendary third grade teacher here, whose name is escaping me. Jan Davis, yes, thank you. Yes, Jan Davis, you all know who she is, who once said during a budget discussion, she was in front of her kind of motley group of third graders, and she said, you know, right before you are all your future school board members, your future select board members, your future firefighters, your future doctors, your future mechanics, your future plumbers, and she went on and on and on. So she said, so we better give them a good education. So on that note, I'm going to turn this over to Emily.
Thank you, Eugenie. Thank you all so much for being here. We're a little shocked it all came together. I'm Emily McManamy. I have a fourth grader in the school here, and I care about this place deeply, so I'm thrilled to be in the same space having this really important conversation with all of you. Tonight I'm going to serve as the moderator just to keep us on task, and so we're not here into the wee hours of the night. First, I do want to invite our school board and elected officials up to the table here. It'll just make it a little bit easier for folks to ask you questions. Is that what it is? Thank you. Just some rules of the road tonight. We want to keep everything civil, respectful. We will be inviting all of you to stand up, ask questions, make a comment. When you do so, we do ask that you use the microphone. I know it's not comfortable for everyone. It's not comfortable for me. But it is important for the video that we're recording tonight so that folks that were not able to attend are able to participate virtually after the fact. Again, this is an opportunity for us to come together, not to pit towns against each other. I think we're all hopeful for the best outcome for each of our individual schools. And when you do want to speak, we will have John Dunham circulating with a microphone, so please just raise your hand. And if you could state your name and your town or any relevant affiliation, that would be helpful too. And for all of you folks at the table, I'm going to have each of you give you the opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes. No pressure. If you want to defer and just say, I'll take questions, that's fine too, but I do want to give you that opportunity. Okay. I want to introduce Jane Lowe. She's going to read aloud a letter that Monkton Save Our Schools put together along with some helpful information to ground us in this conversation.
Thanks. I really didn't think I'd be speaking to this many people tonight. Good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, I have lived in Monkton for 40 years, and my 2 children were educated here. In addition to decades of PTO work, I served on the Monkton Central School Board, Mount Abe School Board for a total of 15 years, from 1998 to 2013, as well as the Addison Northeast Supervisory Union Board, when it existed, from 2000 to 2010. I also represented the Addison County to the Vermont School Boards Association for 8 years. And some of my comments tonight include pieces written by several people, and I hope I do them justice. The reason we are here tonight is because of a decision made by the Mount Abe Union Supervisory District Board on April 14th to pursue a study to close Monkton Central School. This was based on the fact that Monkton residents had not weighed in very heavily on the proposal to close Starksboro several years ago. The survey they cite had roughly 200 responses from the entire school district. At that time, most of us considered that Monkton Central was considered safe because of the size of our student body. A school board member stated that they were tired of fighting Starksboro, so closing Monkton is the next option. Is this just the path of least resistance? Is this how decisions regarding the cost and quality of education should be made? A decision of this magnitude must be grounded in fairness, transparency, and clearly defined criteria. At present, it's unclear what specific metrics are being used to evaluate each school, how those metrics are being applied consistently, and how trade-offs between sites are being weighed. Without this clarity, the community cannot meaningfully understand or support the direction being proposed. There has been no evidence presented that closing Monkton would save taxpayer money. The same students will need to be bused longer distances to schools that may or may not have the capacity to house them. The district's own facilities master plan further highlights the need for a balanced evaluation. The analysis shows that all non-Bristol schools, including Monkton and Robinson, require significant building additions to support a two-school model. This indicates that consolidation is not simply a matter of efficiency, but it would involve substantial capital investment, regardless of which sites are selected. Monkton is a growing community with an increasing tax base, and eliminating the local elementary school will not be attractive to new families. We currently have a population of 2,248, an increase of 8.1% in just 6 years. It's a trend that's not shared by many towns within Addison County. Monkton is also a town with a solid history of community involvement. This is evidenced by our ever-busy community room, library, and historical museum located within our new town hall, an active recreation committee which organizes school-age sports year-round and manages 2 recreation areas, a new hard court for basketball and pickleball at Morse Park, a dog park, our new town forest, Ravens Ridge, our volunteer fire department and first responders, and our Friends Church food pantry. Thousands of hours of volunteer time, grant writing, and fundraising have helped all of these efforts from which our residents benefit. And then there is the Monkton Central School, where members of the Monkton community also volunteer their time and money. As an example, the PTO's Readathon fundraiser earned $12,000 in each of the past 2 years from community members to support activities in our school. Local residents also volunteer in the mentoring program, the PTO, and the Four Winds. Excuse me, I didn't staple my pages together. That's fine. And the Four Winds Nature Program at Monkton Central. The amount of support the community provides to the school is substantial. Many residents recall the school addition that was built back in 1998-99 and our tax dollars that were used to build it. In my opinion, a majority of Monkton residents will never vote to close its school, particularly with no proof of significant cost savings. With its natural beauty, agricultural history, and proximity to Burlington and Middlebury, Monkton is a natural draw for home buyers and families. Our school also makes us an appealing place in which to raise a family. Homes that go up for sale don't languish on the real estate market and typically sell quickly with multiple offers, although this is a crazy housing market. Current active projects with the Development Review Board per their town webpage include the potential creation of roughly 20 new building lots. The Town Planning Commission has consistently included education and child care goals in our town plans. The most recent town plan, adopted a year ago, sets the goals of supporting high-quality education for all elementary and high school students residing here, and to support the Monkton Central School as a vital community service. Over the past 7 years, student enrollment at Monkton Central has remained stable, with hopes of a slight increase. One cannot use shrinking enrollment as a reason to close our school right now. Major cost drivers in education tend to generally be recognized to be staffing levels, health insurance, special education, and capital expenditures. It is difficult to understand how closing a building and busing students a much greater distance will result in meaningful cost savings. I'd like to quote some sections of a beautifully written letter to the editor written in February of 2026 by Tom Frazier, a resident of Roxbury, whose school was closed for consolidation purposes. What was once the heart of our town is now an empty building, and our children are bused at least 45 minutes each way to schools in the Montpelier district. That means many kids spend 2 hours a day on a bus. Time that used to be spent learning, playing, or being with family. Children are less able to participate in after-school activities. Younger students are separated from the familiar, community-centered environment that helped them thrive. Families feel less connected to their schools because schools are no longer part of the community. Young children benefit from being educated close to home. It means understanding that schools are not just service centers, they are the anchors of community life. And it means acknowledging that policies that may work in population centers that can do real harm when applied to wholesale to small towns. In rural towns, consolidation doesn't mean a short walk across town. It means long bus rides on winding dirt roads. It means empty buildings that are hard to repurpose. It means fewer young families choosing to stay or move in. And it often means higher costs, not lower costs. And the promised savings? This year, Roxbury taxpayers were told to expect a 44% increase in school property taxes after having had their school closed. We need to look at the broader economic implications of closing any school. Monkton is a growing town. Our tax base is increasing. Closing the school could reverse this and could ultimately hurt the whole school district in terms of education costs and economic vitality. The school board should focus its attention on the cost drivers that can be controlled, such as finding a reasonable solution for housing the district offices. How might closing a school ultimately impact class size, the quality of education, and sense of community? While public engagement is essential, decisions of this scale should not be shaped disproportionately by where the opposition is strongest, but instead guided by consistent, transparent criteria. When outcomes appear to shift based on political pressure rather than objective evaluation, it risks undermining trust and creating a sense of inequity across the district. We asked the Mount Abe Union School District Board to halt any study regarding the closure of Monkton Central School. It is a waste of taxpayer money to proceed with this study. The board should present evidence-based suggestions. It should look at ways to save money that do not disrupt schools and families within our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Okay, one more matter of housekeeping. If you didn't sign it already, the petition is located right at the table at the front door, restrooms in the back corner. Now I'd like to move it to all of you, and I'll pass the mic, and you're welcome to share any remarks for 5 minutes, and then we'll open it up to the floor.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Barb Crandall, and I'm just going to start by telling you a little bit about myself. My husband and I and our family have lived in Monkton over 35, 37 years. It's been a long time. We've lost track. My husband and I have 3 sons. They all went through the Monkton school. They all got a terrific education, great foundation, and are successful in life thus far. I come from an education background. I'm a retired art educator. I taught in Winooski for over 31 years, and I also taught at Lake Region High School for 9 years prior to that. So when the opportunity to serve on the board came up, I thought that perhaps I would have a little insight from the education perspective so that I could advocate for community, for students, and make things better somehow. We have been, since I joined, I should say, I've been on the board for almost, well, it's a little over 3 years. And since then, we have been looking at very high taxes for our school budgets. They keep going up. And distressingly, loss of programs and or teachers through attrition. The charge of the board is to make sure that we are fiscally responsible to you, the community, and to make sure that we can facilitate the best education for our students. So, with that in mind, and influenced, I'll just use that word, with what's happening at the state level, and the big word is consolidation, things started, I think, just kind of the ball kept rolling and escalating. So we're at the point where we are now. So last August, we, the board, were at a retreat and we were presented with some options to see if we could do just that. How could we, I guess the question was, how could we provide a great education for our students and rein in the cost to you as the residents? And there were a lot of options that came forth for delivery models for education. I think, what did you say, 15 or 8? 17. Yeah, so in that range. And we looked at all of them, and when was it? Maybe 4 months ago? We kind of boiled it down to 3 options. So the delivery models were the first one, keeping each of our schools. And not necessarily, don't think of it as status quo, but keeping our schools so that we could really provide a better education, use the buildings better. What could we do with that model? And to be determined, right? A second option was grade banding, which means moving students or grouping them pre-K through 2, 3 to 5, 6 to 8 in high school. 6 through 12 would be at the high school at Mount Abe, possibly, and using pre-K through 2 at one school and putting 3 through 5 at a second school. So the assumption is, if you're only using 2 buildings, what happens to the other 2? So we're talking about using 3 buildings, correct? With that option. The third option would have been, or will be, to be determined, having 2 elementary buildings being pre-K through 5, and then using the high school with 6 through 12. And I believe, I'm not sure, but the superintendency is being moved to the possibility going into one of those buildings. Okay. So I'm on the Community Engagement Committee, and we presented these options, the models for delivery, to each of the select boards, to Monkton, to New Haven, to Bristol, and to Starksboro. We were trying to get the word out. We had a couple of surveys that were sent out, and we did these presentations. So I believe most of you are here because you know what happened at the last meeting on the 14th. You know, I think we went into it knowing that possibly all schools were vulnerable. I think that was the mindset. And I think there were some possibilities for some of the schools to be favored for closure more than others. But between you and me, I was taken aback and I was very surprised when the vote came to select more studies to be done on, to kind of push through to schools that would be used as the buildings. And the assumption is if we either chose option 2 or 3, Monkton wasn't included. So just for the record, I did not vote for that. I did not feel, even though like I saw the responses for those surveys, and I don't feel like a lot of people, we're not reaching our population at all. And in my opinion, I was worried that the Monkton community would be taken by surprise. And I really feel like I'm a representative for you, as well as making sure I can kind of follow through on the charge for the board. But I feel like you all need a say, and eventually, hopefully, we'll all get a vote. So I'm going to end right there, and I'm going to pass the baton to Justin. Thank you.
Hey guys, my name is Justin. I'm fighting a little cold here, sorry. I have a daughter in 2nd grade, and I'm gonna have my youngest daughter being in kindergarten here this fall. Barb kind of went through everything that happened last Tuesday. Just give a little bit of my perspective here in the community. I moved here in 2017, so I missed that Act 47, the merger with everything. And I come from an area over in New York by Fort Drum where we had a larger school district. My graduating class was like 250, 6 elementary schools. So I feel like I can bring a little bit of perspective that's different from some of our board members. You know, I'm not for the closure of any school within the 4 elementary buildings. However, based on the mishap that happened at the state level last fall with the task force not really doing their job they got hired to do, I feel like this is a step that we should take to at least study some models so that we can actually have a direction in where to go or not go. At least that's my stance. I know it's gonna cost the taxpayers money. I'm a taxpayer here. I know that our taxes went to Montpelier last year. No offense, sorry. But the task force, they failed, and we as a state wasted money. And now I realize I'm asking our community to kind of do the same thing. However, it would be nice to know where we can go at the end of the study, whether that be not saving any money, saving something. You know, Jane, to your point, in Roxbury, you know, their taxes are going up substantially from a consolidation that was supposed to save them money. So I would like to see it. I would like to see the study done all the way through. So at least that's my stance, and I am not going to be voting for any type of closure whenever that happens, because I do see the value in having, you know, every town have a school. So thanks.
Hi, I'm Kylie. I live here in Monkton. I grew up in Bristol, went to Bristol Elementary, graduated from Mount Abe. I also have 4 children. I may join the club with Joan Holloway and Nina Badger. My oldest is 15 and my youngest is not even 1 yet. So I've had 2 children so far go through Monkton. My second child's in 6th grade, and 2 that have not even started their school education yet. So, you know, this is very personal for me too, as not only a board member and a Monkton citizen, but also as a parent. And so I just wanted to point that out. I don't know where to start because I have so many thoughts in my head. And so I just want to apologize in advance if it feels like I'm just jumping or going through bullet points, because in my head that's kind of what I'm doing. I didn't go to the board meeting last week. Unfortunately, one of my children has been pretty sick, and because of that, I missed the last 2 board meetings. But I did listen to the entire board, all 4 hours and 8 minutes of the last board meeting. So I had not listened to those meetings minutes or the video prior to me opening my email on Wednesday. So that was very surprising. And I have to say that I was very surprised at what happened. I did not foresee Monkton being voted. Well, I did not foresee the vote being that Starksboro would be the school that was studied versus Monkton. I don't want to pit towns against each other. And in saying this, I don't necessarily, think that we should close a school. But in my mind, up to this point in time, it was my belief that Monkton would have been the better school to keep open. Monkton and Robinson, if you look at the some of the studies that have been done so far, like the Truex-Collins facility studies, they're really similar, very similar in many, many ways. And so it's really hard to say one school makes more sense than the other. For me, it's location. That's a big thing. I have to say, I was really appalled with what I learned from the Starksboro community members when they talked about some of the discrepancies that they saw in the Truex-Collins report. And I was a little disappointed that by the end of our board meeting, nobody had firmly said, we need to ask them to speak to these discrepancies, especially if we're going to move forward and pay them more money to do more studies. I mean, what does that say about us as a board, as fiduciaries of our taxpayers' money? And it's not really credible to me at this point in time. I need them to speak. I need them to give me a good explanation, or we need to get a second opinion. And so I'm not speaking for the board when I say that, but that is how I feel, and something that I hope I can bring up at our board meeting next week. Kind of speaking to what Justin was saying, we have been, and what Barb was saying, we have looked at a lot of options since August and been whittling them down. We've been really trying to digest a lot of information amongst these different educational delivery models and what that would mean not only financially, but what is best for our children's education. And we're getting a lot of information, but it's still really high level. We still need, in my opinion, we still need a lot of information. Not just financially, right? Not just through the studies, but also we have a great advisory council that is made up of teachers, and I have a lot of respect for our educators and our staff, and they're highly educated, and I know that they do a wonderful job, and they care and love our children. So I don't want them to feel discredited. But being a professional myself, not in education, I'm in the medical field, evidence is important to me, and I really want to see the evidence on grade banding. What I'm hearing, I really love. I really love the thought of the possible improvements in outcomes, and educational outcomes for my children. I love the idea of that if it's true, but I don't want to move forward on that without seeing the data. What else? Speaking to what Justin said, we're still in the early stages of studying all of this. And I feel pressured. There's a lot of pressure that something will go to vote in November with the other general elections. And I don't necessarily feel like we need to do that. I think our communities could come together for a vote at any time, and I don't think that our board needs to feel pressured by this November date. So me feeling personally like that we can take a little bit more time to do this study, I feel like it's our job as a board to do this, to ask these hard questions, even if they hurt, even if they're, community members are gonna not like the questions we're asking, because we need to give everybody the information to make an informed decision. No school will close without that town's vote. So if we give you the information and it's not going to improve our children's education, or grade banding does show it'll improve our children's education, but we think community is the priority, and it's not going to save money, or it is going to save money, it's up to the town in which the school that would be closed to ultimately decide for our entire district. And so knowing my charge, and knowing that vote, I feel comfortable, and I feel like it's very important for us to continue to ask these hard questions. Now, I'm so excited that Monkton's paying attention now, because of some of the questions and the ideas in the emails that we have gotten are huge, and it gives us an idea on what's important to our community. I mean, we all have a general idea and also our own personal anecdotal experiences of what we think is important to our community. But it's so refreshing. And I know there's this phenomena that I know community engagement is so hard to elicit, and I'm guilty of that, right, with our select board, and right, that I've been that person that doesn't go to all the meetings, and then when something piques my passion, then I'll go, right? And I feel like that's what's happening now. And I'm happy to see that, and I hope we can continue to get everybody's involvement as we go through this process. I think I must be at 5 minutes. I haven't heard the the alarm. I know I'm forgetting something, but I'll pass the mic to Kristen.
Whoever the moderator is? Yes. Are you three the school board?
Yes.
Moving over to the,
Yes.
may I think, is this a point where I could ask something of you before we go into the state for another?
I'm okay with that, but I'm not the moderator.
Emily's coming.
Yeah, I just want to understand the flow of things. So. Yeah. Because this could be another 20 minutes and things, people now have some things we'd like to express to our board before we hear why the state's going to solve all this.
Yes.
Well, that's what I didn't know where the core.
Yes. So we're going to keep moving down the table. We have a couple more representatives from the school board before we move on to our state representatives. Well, thank you, Kylie.
I was actually just going to say I want to be mindful of everyone's time, so I'm going to keep it real short. I'm Kristen Toy. I'm from Starksboro, and I'm mainly here just to show my support and let you all know that Starksboro is completely in support of what you're all going through. We've been there. So I just wanted to show my support as a taxpayer, and also just to let you know that we're available, and we support you.
Yeah, that's kind of my, Herb Olson, again, Starksboro resident, a school board member elected from Starksboro. I'm also one of your state reps, along with Karen here. But I echo what Kristen was saying. My main purpose in coming tonight was to show support for you folks. We've felt this for a number of years, and so we're just here to listen and show support. I will say, to follow up on that, I did not vote to approve the motion that seems to target, Monkton for consideration, and I thought it was unfairly taking people by surprise. There could have been much better process in that. The second thing I guess I'd point out, what Kylie said is that our articles of agreement that kind of structure, what's done in the school district require a vote of the town before the school before the school is closed. That's very important. And, you know, Starksboro we've been making this point for a little while. Whatever you folks want to do, that's great. But my hope is that we'll start focusing on some stuff that is feasible, you know, realistic, in terms of improving education for our kids and saving money. You know, there's a lot of other things I think that can be done around that. The other thing, just reach out to Starksville people, I think. Kristen and I, you know, we're on the school board, so we can't really, you know, sort of advocate like that. But there's a lot of folks in Starksboro I'd encourage you to reach out to, and I'm sure they'll help you quite a bit. That's about it.
Hi, everyone. It's really great to see this turnout and to see the parking lot full and to see a community that cares so much about its elementary school and its community. The beautiful reading that Jane Lowe did to introduce this is a beautiful description of a community, the richness of it, what a school brings to it. And those same concepts and values, we in Lincoln, also Starksboro, we have had all those same thoughts, experiences, beliefs, and it's we're quite lucky that we have these really wonderful communities that are centered around their schools and do provide really excellent education for the early learner. I think they're very successful. I had 3 kids that went to Lincoln. They're all very successful adults, and I was pretty amazed at the quality of their education and happy to be a volunteer for many, many, many years. So I am here to listen to you, to support you. I do have a lot of thoughts and ideas about governance and where we should be spending our study and time, and I don't think it is the elementary school. I do think it is the secondary level that we need to really focus on. But I don't want to take more time at this moment other than I have a lot of thoughts. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm here to listen. So please consider me a resource.
Thank you for that. Steve Heffernan, your Addison County Senator. I ran on education being one of the principles, careful what you ask for, because I am on the education committee. So listening to what's going on is echoed almost in every rural school in Vermont. As far as the State House saying we want to close certain schools, that's a lie. We will put out that how our view is at 30,000 to 100,000 feet looking at the whole picture. You're here in Monkton, Monkton is looking at Monkton. So it makes it very hard for us to, you know, when you come in and have that plight of, look at us. And I agree with everything you say. And as long as your school is viable, I see no reason that your school district should be looking to close you, especially when you're a good, healthy school like Starksboro, like Monkton. Lincoln, they had to do a drastic change to become viable. Now, if your school is running at a budget level that is close to what the average is, I truly believe you shouldn't be looked at. 955 that's coming out, it talks about CSIS, which is a combined use of services. It's a good idea, but it's going to create a little bit more bureaucracy. They want to organic, try to have towns, communities choose to close their schools as they see fit. We can look at like New Haven. New Haven has actually got a lot more decline in students. They have, and you know, to go to Bristol, it's a 5-minute trip. That's requiring your kids to go further. It's not really going to cost. Is that what's right for the community? That's a hard decision. We also looked at, we can look at Ripton. If it was up to the people of Ripton, they probably would not have closed that school. But that school had become unaffordable to the taxpayers and to the community. And it polls. You know, I've been over to Hancock and Randolph and talked with those people. To see a school close, it does take away from the community. It is up to the community to, to draw together to keep your community base going. But as far as the school goes, it's a hard call. They made that call. They don't see a large cost savings. The worst thing is you guys could save all kinds of money on your school. But then you have other districts that overspend, and up goes your tax rate anyway. And that's what's happening, especially down in Fairhaven. Slattery Valley is one of the lowest tuition rates around Vermont, but yet their tax rate continues to go up. Why is that? Because we, other communities, are paying for other districts that are not conscientious about their spending. So that's where we run into this. So as far as Monkton closing, I do not want to see Monkton close. My granddaughter goes here. She moved from Bristol. They moved from Bristol to here. It's a great school. I've been here for a couple meetings, and it's a wonderful school. As the school board said, you should have criteria that you're looking at. And when you're looking down through that criteria, and you start seeing that your school may be lacking in that criteria, the school should try to make the change to bring it so it satisfies it, or start looking that, oh no, we actually have an option that we may have to close our school. Nobody I can tell you, every board member in the Senate education wouldn't want to come here and close your school. But that's not going to be the case for every school. Now I look at Addison County, I look at down in the southern half of Shoreham and Bridport. They're struggling to have attendance. They're thinking of combining their school. That could be a good choice for the community. And they're going to make that decision together, I hope, to save their community and their taxpayers money. Where can we save money? We have 119 different districts, 52 SUs. Senator Bumsgaard put out one that he wants to cut this in half. And along with the CESAs, we're in the gray area. They want us to try to see Mount Abe, Middlebury, and Virgins all become one district. Will that save us money? It's possible. I was in education, listened for a year and a half, and I came out with an idea of going to one unified school system, no more districts. Your school boards stay just as they are. They'll answer to an administrator that is overseeing 2,000 to 4,000 kids, who answers to a superintendent that will eventually answer to the AOE. That's the most simple, basic way I can put it, but it does cut all of our stuff in half. Still gives local choice. It gets resistance because of the union. They don't. Just be honest. The union doesn't want to see it because it turns down to one contract. It changes the bargain power a little bit. The upside is now all these services that we need to share, I use a simple thing like Taco Tuesday. Now that everybody in Vermont has Taco Tuesday, the buying power for all that product that you may be paying, right now $5 or $6 a pound for your hamburger, now that you're buying so much because the whole state's using it, it cuts it down to, $4. It's looking at stuff like that, sharing special ed needs. Monkton only needs a special ed teacher for 4 hours. Starksboro needs the same. You don't have to worry about being in different districts, and if the contract doesn't line up, something can automatically happen. A lot of people like the sounds of that, but I got a lot of resistance. So what the state's going for right now is 955 is going to get caught up from the House. It doesn't give you a lot of choice, and hopefully Seth's will, but I'm still about one unified system, I'll have to say. I'll try not to take any more time. I'm only here till about 8:15. I appreciate the chance to talk. From the state level, though, we're trying to do what's best for Vermont. And dang, it's a hard job, I have to tell you, because rural Vermont is the life of Vermont, and I want to keep it alive because I'm born and raised here.
Thank you. Thank you, each of you. So now we're going to open it up to the floor. We've got one hand up. John's going to circulate the microphone. We'll head over to Lee next. I'm going to leave this microphone with each of you. And again, let's be mindful of time. We're aiming to wrap up within the hour. And I know there's lots of folks that have questions and comments. So let's say we'll limit responses to about a minute. All right? Okay, let's go.
Okay, my name is Mark Rickner. I've been in Vermont long enough that I know people who are on Madeline Kunin's foundation program because we were going to solve the whole funding of education. So that's 40-plus years. 3 successful kids through the school district, all the way through the district. I'm not calling it Monkton or Mount Abe. It's the district, very successful. Back to what you were saying about studies. I'm going to ask a very pointed question. There was a very specific study we all paid for that came out and said, we are top-heavy in our administration. Every single time I have asked about that study and what has been acted on by the board, I have been told, well, we really haven't implemented any of the recommendations of a study that we, the taxpayers, paid for to look at lowering our costs. Why should we support continuing more studies if you're not going to act on the studies that you've already paid for? I mean, I have so many different things I could go off on this, but that's the one that really, and I'll say that I was at a board meeting, district board meeting, what was it, 7 years ago. And there was this determination that we needed the teachers who were educators and had degrees to have coaches because they needed to know how to teach better. And I said, what is going to be the criteria for success? Do you have metrics? How much is this going to cost? The answer was, we'll have to run the program for a while and then we'll know. And we're still paying, I think, for some coaches and coordinators. And now I'm hearing, I just have to tee off on it, when you use the word, and it may lead to more bureaucracy, no. Okay, that's more money. We don't need 5 superintendents within 15 miles of each other at 100,000 plus benefits. And I'll go back to where I grew up in New Jersey. Monmouth County, 800,000 people. Monmouth County School District. Now, you know, it's a different world up here, and I understand that. We're so spread out. You can't use the same models. But I do have to ask why New Hampshire seems to have figured out their education spending. We don't hear about this all the time from our neighbor, but we have to keep reinventing the wheel. So these are just things that just make me go, aha. But I need you to just answer, why haven't we acted on the recommendations that were already made by past studies? And why should we think that any study that's going to be done is going to be acted on? And I do have one last. 30 years ago, when we had some of these same issues, it came to the point that we had no faith in the administration of the district, and we had a vote to that effect. Because we were not feeling that the district, I don't need to name the person, was really managing the district at a very high level. That things were not improving educationally, but they were improving in terms of cost. No, they weren't improving. So, you know, when do we look at the central administration? Lincoln did. Said, you know what? This isn't working for us. We now have another school district. And so one thing I would love, you want to go way out of the box? My wife doesn't agree with this. The elementary schools all share a common thread. They teach, elementary school students. You want cost savings at a local level? Let Mount Abe survive or die on its own, and the different individual towns who have Monkton, Lincoln, if the other schools can survive, fine. We can go join LSD, I love the name, Lincoln School District. And you know what? Maybe we'll have an outcome of education that's better, and we can let the Central Mount Abraham Board see if they can manage a high school. And we can decide to tuition our kids to Mount Abe, or maybe to Virgins, or maybe to CVU. If I live in Starksboro, I might want to go to CVU. So now there's an option way out of the box. We don't need Mount Abe.
That was the Levinson report, right? That you were talking, right? Yeah, we've talked about
And
that.
I guess my
Knew it.
question
Yeah.
is, has any been done based on the Levinson report to reduce
Is
the
that
overhead and
Finance
administration?
facilities?
I love how you point at me.
Oh,
You were on the
I
board
know- I
before
know.
me.
I know
And
for a
you
year.
served on the finance and
Oh.
facilities before me. I'm just picking on you. I was on finance and facilities for the last 2 years, and I just got off. And I was on finance and facilities for the last 2 years, and I just got off. I'm now on policy and governance, although we haven't had our first meeting yet. Barb, you've been 3 years?
Same as you.
Yeah. 3 years?
Yeah, I'm 2, less than 1. The point I'm trying to make is I still feel like a very new board member, and there's a lot of history. Some of it I don't remember, some of it I remember a little bit, and some of it, like I said, I'm still learning as a board member. So I know you're speaking of the Levinson report, and we've talked about that report a lot, and I wasn't on the board when that consultant was done and that report was given to us. But the Finance and Facilities Committee did look at downsizing the central office staff specifically. And feel free, I mean, all these meetings are open to the public to view, not just the minutes, but the recordings. It was sometime in the last year and a half, and if somebody wants to know, I can give you the specific dates, just email me, and I can figure that out for you if you really want to go through all the nitty-gritty. Because I know I can't recall it myself tonight, every little detail. They did look at it, and ultimately the savings was pennies. And I can remember the administration saying there are so many regulatory compliance laws and rules that need to be followed that by decreasing staff, it puts us at risk of not being in compliance. And then on top of that, the savings was not even going to be close to what we needed.
Maybe a little more about the Levinson report, because I was familiar with that, because that's when they were trying to disclose Starksboro, and so the Levinson report was part of that, and I think there were some recommendations that were accepted, and then there were some that were not. And part of sometimes I think we miss the point of that report. The guy was very smart, and what he talked about was that when you approach your operations and what you spend on and what you do capital improvement, you got to have what he called a cost-effective mindset. So every single decision that you have should be within the context of, does this improve education, and is it at the most cost-effective way? So I tried to answer, some was done, some was not. I think a lot of Levinson was about devolving a lot of the decisions around operations and financing to elementary schools, kind of like you were talking about. We haven't done that. That maybe we're going to have to deal with financial issues. And, maybe that's something that we can revive. Is that going to be a way to help with the quality but still reduce the cost? Does that answer your question? No?
Because I'll just give you examples. We're talking about a decreasing population.
Yeah.
So we're told we have a decreasing population, we can close schools because we don't need as many facilities. Having dealt now with the administration, and not bad at all in terms of going through a whole process of retirement, I've learned many things. Back when we first joined this district, the staff was much smaller. And we handled our own payroll, our own benefits. You could actually call somebody here and get an answer directly about benefits because we dealt with them ourselves. We did many of the things here at our district office. Now we have an outsourced payroll, an outsourced medical, an outsourced in terms of anything you call about retirement. And we have more people in the administrative office and less people to manage. So I don't understand why more wasn't done with that report, and it makes me just say, I don't understand what another report will do, but I'm sure in the end it will.
I guess my point was that that was a good report, and the sort of concept I thought was really good.
We didn't.
So we're going to move to our next question or comment.
All right, I've got some comments. I'm going to go up here so everybody's head doesn't have to go on a swivel. I'm Lee, if you don't know me. I'm new in the area, been here about 3 years. And the quick question I've got is, who here wants to pay more in property taxes? Go ahead, raise your hand. Got one guy over here.
Keep the school open, yeah.
There we go. There you go, yeah. Closing the school doesn't save money, as we all know. We don't need to do another study on it. That's been studied. Everybody's got the internet. We can look it up. This is treating a symptom versus the disease. Does anybody know what the increase is in teachers' salaries or the amount of money that we spent on school, like fuel, food, stuff like that? How much has gone up over the last 6 years, roughly?
80% of your school budget is for labor.
There we go.
labor and
Healthcare.
yeah.
That's where I'm going with this. So it's been about 10% increase in salary, and honestly, like the maintenance of the building and stuff like that, heating costs and all that, almost exactly the same as they were 10 years ago. Pennies difference. 110% healthcare increase. That's insurance cost that everybody here is paying for teachers. 110%. So if we're talking about something that's going to change, we're going to close this school, and guess what's going to happen next year? Healthcare is going to go up another 20%, or whatever they want it to go up as. And guess what? Doesn't matter. Your taxes are going to stay the same. Essex Junction is doing the same thing. I believe it's Essex Junction. You can call me on this if I'm not correct on it. But they closed a school to save about $1 million, and their healthcare went up about $1 million. So guess how much money they saved? Zero. I'm looking at the numbers right here. Annual cost of a Vermont Teachers Family Health Care Plan in 2018 was about $17,000, and annual cost in 2025 was $36,000. So if you're wondering where your money is going, that's where it's going. So everything that we're talking about right now is trying to walk around that issue. That's the issue that has to be addressed. But we're going to do this again, and we're going to do it again, and we're going to do it again. And we're just going to keep closing the schools until there's no more schools. And guess what? There's no more people. That's the second part I want to talk about. School's not a line item. We've got people that are associated with the school. The school is a major employer of almost any town. And not only that, the teachers bring people with them. They bring a partner who's a plumber, who's a nurse, who's a volunteer firefighter. Hey, Dave. So we bring people with us who work in the community. We make money for the community. A school closes, guess what? Those people go somewhere else. It happens every single time. I've seen teachers do it. I've got friends who are teachers. They have to move where the work is. They're not going to drive 2 hours to go to school to where they work. They are going to have to go where there is a school. And when this one closes, and then the next one closes, and the next one closes, they're just going to keep moving wherever that money is because that is their job. So overall, if we want to talk about where we have to save money, we have to talk about, honestly, I don't know how to solve this because healthcare is obviously a major issue, but yeah, I got a little cough and laugh there. We might have to talk to the union about thinking about healthcare in a different way for our teachers, maybe bringing some local doctors in or something like that and changing the way that our insurance works so that we can bring the cost of the insurance down, which helps the teachers as an overall whole. I work with, and I'm going to just plug her real quick, I doubt she's here, but Dr. Marian Bouchard, who's a direct primary care physician. It's $100 a month. I can go there as many times as I want. She can fix just about everything from you need medication, prescriptions, you got like a broken leg, some stitches, stuff like that. And then going up from there into what's some plan that would cover stuff that you would go to UVM or out-of-state stuff for. It would bring the cost of healthcare way down for our teachers. It would also bring doctors to the area, just so we're all aware of, like, we want to bring money in and we want to pay our taxes and we want to make sure our schools are open. Just a thought, one of the many, many ideas. But overall, I want to put out there that schools keep our people around. Like, they keep me around, they keep many of our nurses and other people around, and the costs are not in the teachers. They're not in the school, they're not in the floorboards here. They're in healthcare, and we can't just keep treating the symptom, because we're not gonna have enough legs to chop off and enough arms to chop off to just keep it going forever. It's not gonna happen. And that's about it. I don't really have any questions for the group here. Thank you.
Well, I have to comment to that real quick, that the biggest, and Karen probably can speak on that, healthcare so much better. Vermont's biggest problem is there's not enough of us. So when you talk about your insurance pool, it's too small. We're trying to get to say, hey, why don't we try to get with another state to share, to help get our pool bigger, to bring our price down. Working on that, but you don't have anybody that wants to take us in. But can you speak a little bit on the healthcare?
I can speak to healthcare, but, and that very eloquently, that was so well said. But there's a lot of people in the room, and I want people to have a chance to ask questions, so I don't want to, I could talk about healthcare at some length, but I won't.
One-minute answer. Can the state help with the problem we're having with the high costs because of healthcare?
It is such a driver. I've been looking at healthcare and education or thinking about it for about 10 years before we were a unified union school district, and then while we were, and I kept looking at the numbers and the compounding of it. And I can't do it in a minute, but I will say we are diligently working on it. We did save $230 million to the healthcare system this year by reducing what could be charged for drugs by hospitals. So that was good. And what that ended up doing was actually saving the school districts, instead of going up an awful 12%, it went up an awful almost 7%, 6 or 7%. So that's millions and millions of dollars saved to schools and taxpayers, but it's not good enough. I have a lot to talk about with healthcare, but there's a lot of people in the room that have questions, so I want to make space for that.
Hi, my name's Tom Larmouth. I taught on ABE for a long time. So my questions, I have two questions. So one is, are they talking about a foundation grant for students at the state level, where they'd pay them, all students would get this flat rate, so it wouldn't vary from town to town? Is that in 955?
So what 955 does, and I think it was not a failure, I think it was a deep and thoughtful success, because the task force actually looked at all the data. How do you provide quality education? How do you save money? And cooperative education service areas, CSAs, actually have been proven to do that when you consolidate resources around things like IT, special education, human resources. You actually save a lot of money quickly up front, which is good. Those are mandatory under 955. Then there are these mandatory voluntary discussions. That's the second phase, but it's all headed toward a foundation formula, so to provide equity for every child and to provide some certainty and stability to the taxpayer. So that is the goal, but we don't get to it right away. It is, we're working toward that. But I'll let, did you have something to add, Steve? Or is that about it?
It's fine.
Okay.
Like I said, there's other questions, so, yeah.
I wonder why we're working towards it and we just can't do it, but that's another question. The other question is around mandatory ratios, teacher-student ratios. My understanding is that goes into effect in July.
It's already in effect.
It's already in effect. This year it's in effect? No. I talked to Pat Reed.
Minimum class.
I talked to Patrick
minimum class
Green, and he
size
said that the minimum class size is really going to hit MAU. It's going to hit the high school next year, because then it's going to be the 18 to 1 at the high school level. I'm wondering what it is at the elementary level.
The elementary schools are meeting their minimum class sizes. Mount Abe cannot meet its minimum class sizes.
But both elementary schools are meeting their minimum class size?
Class sizes are going to be kicked down the road until, that's what we're amending the bill now for.
Okay,
So,
that's
yeah.
good.
Wow.
It seems like if you do a foundation formula, every kid gets this much money, you don't need to do class size, because the schools will figure it out to get this much money per kid. They'll
Exactly.
figure out class size. Okay,
And
thanks.
then they're trying to push the foundation formula further down the road. Biggest issue is if the average right now is $15,033, and then you add weights for special ed, special needs, English learning students.
But Mount Ames was like 16 or something last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a lot. But, yeah,
really?
yeah. Well, it depends. There's so many factors of special needs children that will push it up. So that it's
It was low.
Lincoln's is very low, but we pay tuition to Mount Abe. It was, and we, anyways, we paid $21,000 per student to tuition a year ago. This year, they raised it to $28,000 per secondary student for us to tuition to Mount Abe. CVU, Middlebury, all the other high schools have a lower tuition rate than Mount Abe. They have the highest.
Herb, did you want to say something real quick?
No, I want to hear from you.
Okay.
Hello, my name's Jeremy Brault. I'm a parent of a student at Monkton Central here. I just want to make sure we're focusing in on kind of the real near term here. I think everyone's in the room because Monkton Central is on the chopping block. And so for a lot of us here, great, all these ideas need to happen, but I think we have this real near term thing that I want to make sure we're focused on as much as possible, and people have kind of questions about that. Can have time to talk about it. And so I just really want to ask the board members here, what can be done in the next board meeting to kind of pause, repeal, undo the decision that was just made, so we can kind of reset this and come back at it from a more sane and kind of level view. Maybe set some overall kind of benchmarks or anchoring idea, like dollar values or things that we want to see to evaluate based on, but just how can we reset this, and what are your guys' plans on that for the next meeting? Thanks.
Hi, yeah, I would encourage as many of you as possible to come to the next board meeting. The next board meeting will be Thursday night. I'll post it. I'll post the agenda. It's a special meeting, and there's public comment.
I just want to add that the public comment, which is, I feel like public comment is very frustrating, not just for the community members, but also for the board members. It feels like we're very cold, right? Because for anybody who's witnessed it, we don't get to talk back to you. And a lot of that has to do with the meeting laws and everything, and when things aren't warned on the agenda. But this board meeting that's coming up, there's public comment after every agenda item. So it will feel a little like there's a little bit more dialogue, which I'm really excited about. So to get back to your question, I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. I think the biggest thing that Monkton can do in Starksboro, and really the community of our entire district, is start coming to the meetings. Start coming to the meetings and speak up so we know what's important and so that everybody knows what's going on. So to help guide the district as we move forward.
The question was, what are you going to do?
Oh, yeah. So we have the agenda. The agenda is already posted, and so there's a couple different actions that are going to take place. And I can't really say what we're going to do as a board. because I can't speak for the board. I'm one person, and actually none of us can speak for the board, and we're not a quorum tonight either. Yeah. So I did already speak a little bit about what's important to me. For me, especially, it's the Truex Collins report right now, and you know, I don't want to go through each agenda item and take forever, but it's hard to know. It's hard to know where the conversation's going to go. So how do I tell you what I'm going to speak to and what I'm going to do? So I sent an email to our board chair after, because I wasn't at the meeting, but after hearing about what happened, and said I want to reevaluate. And I know that other people did too. I don't know who, but I know that other board members did as well. So that's when we said we need to meet before the May 12th or whatever the next meeting was, and we came up with this additional meeting.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's safe to assume that will be talked about, because it obviously is very important to everyone here and to folks who weren't able to make it as well. So I don't think you have to worry about that being a topic of conversation. But I think the important detail too is that there will be the opportunity to engage after each talking point on the agenda. So, you know, even if you can't come in person, come via Zoom, and make sure that, you know, even if you don't have a question, just being seen is important, I think, and it's been helpful for Starksboro.
Yeah, you know, you got to get out and advocate for what you think should happen. I suspect at some point, whether it's at the special meeting or some other point, that someone's going to say we should hit the pause button on this. Whether that's, you know, next Thursday or some other day, I suspect someone's going to say, you know, if you need a vote of the town before you close a school, and two towns are saying, not so much, you know, maybe you need to shift and figure out some other way to deal with our financial difficulties. Anyway.
Just briefly, I wanted to say I think it's premature to talk about school closings, given all the transformation that's going on. So written comments, maybe also to the school board. Do you read all those when they come in? So there's many ways to show up.
Am I to understand that Truex Collins is the arbiter of this report that you guys are researching? Truex Collins? They're the firm, right? I went to their website. I'm not familiar with them. But on their homepage, it says Truex Collins is an integrated architecture and interior design firm that provides comprehensive solutions for clients nationwide. We pride ourselves on visions made real, creative buildings and spaces. So I guess my curiosity is, you know, as a woodworker, can I qualify to potentially give you guys some sort of advice on what one ought to do with the town? I guess, all things aside, what qualifies Truex Collins to give us honest solutions for an interior design architect? And that's all I have to say. Yeah. Curiosity.
I mean, they're a reputable firm in Vermont. I would say that board members kind of differ as to the value of that report right now in the context of, you know, what we're talking about right now.
Why not ask a plumber?
Why not ask an electrician?
Like, honestly, what is Truex Collins qualified to give us this information?
They can have the communication where they have to.
There you go.
You know, it's a good question. I can't speak for the entire board. I'm just telling you that some members have different opinions about the value. That's all.
I think he's saying it sounds like a conflict of interest.
It sounds like
Someone
you're
who
asking
builds
somebody to do something that they're not
schools should not
qualified.
be deciding to close them.
Right.
To build other ones bigger.
School education.
Well, it should be about the students, not about the buildings.
How does Truex Collins have any idea about what's going on with any school, anywhere?
It's a conflict of interest.
I know him quite well. He's
very much do.
They know about school structuring and administration, even though they advertise as builders.
So I'm Joan Holloway. I'm just wanted to address real quickly about coming to the board meetings. I've come to a few Mount Abe board meetings, and it feels like a frustrating waste of time because you sit there and listen. Sometimes the board goes into executive session before they come back and listen to public comment. So you sit through the whole meeting, then you sit there and look at the ceiling for 20 minutes, and then maybe they'll sit there for 5 minutes and you get to make a statement and nobody answers it. So I understand it felt more, when we used to come here and speak to our Monkton neighbors, I felt more like it had an effect. It doesn't feel like it, but I understand we have to come. So I just wanted to read a little bit of this very briefly. The Levinson report, which was by Nate Levinson and his firm New Solutions K through 12. I don't know exactly what year it was, but it was before Lincoln left the district. So somebody probably knows. And on page 7, it says, based on the analysis, MAUSD can maintain 5 small elementary schools if the community, school leaders, and central office all embrace a cost-effective mindset. And then it goes on to say that we can't keep being how we've been and keep them open. But it says this, either a change in mindset or a change in the number of schools is needed. And starting with in December of 2020, when the superintendent said, we're going to repurpose Lincoln, and then the lawyers battled it out for a while as to whether repurposing was closing, and it was finally decided that was closing, so that had to get taken off the table. But how much did we pay lawyers to get to that? And then we had the Levinson report, we have the Truex Collins report. All we seem to be doing is paying for studies that will close schools. Lincoln pushed back, they left. Starksboro has spent how much money, and the district has spent how much money fighting against Starksboro fighting back? Now here we are in Monkton saying, no, we don't want our school to close. And so the Levinson report, which we all paid for, included a path for cost cutting that did not include closing any of the 5 at that time, schools, but the district has thus far been unwilling to investigate or propose any of those options. So my charge to the school board is to say, stop fighting against your towns, your people. Look for ways to keep all the schools that want to stay open with a reasonable cost and cost cutting. So that would be my charge to our school board members.
Hi, I'm John McNerney. I've lived in Monkton for almost 25 years, 13 of them on the select board, where I got more earfuls than I wanted from a lot of town people. I've been a volunteer in school since my youngest was in kindergarten. He's now 24. I continued to volunteer at MCS and at Mount Abe long after both my kids were out of that school. So I've been around both schools quite a bit. The first thing I want to say is maybe from the survey responses, there seems to be an opinion or a hope that Monkton doesn't care too much. I can guarantee you this town will never, ever vote to close its school. The chance of that vote ever happening is about like an ice cube's chance in hell. I don't see it happening. The other thing I wanted to say is there's been a lot of talk about healthcare. This is not a question for you to answer. We're not going to solve healthcare in this meeting. The school board's not going to solve healthcare. Healthcare is a problem in Vermont. It is not a school problem. It's a problem for everybody. I think the state needs to be asking itself why we've made it so uncomfortable for insurers to do business that they have to jack up their rates and that we have hardly any competition. Again, that's not a school board thing. I worked for a company in Ohio, was covered under their insurance till I switched to being a consultant. I could be paying 40% less in premiums now if I were paying the full boat under that company's insurance. I'd have a $2,000 deductible instead of a $10,000 deductible and have better coverage through their program out in Ohio. So we've got a problem here that is not a school board problem, that is driving a lot of our school issues. But I guess my main point is there's no way this town's ever voting to close the school.
Hi, I'm going to stand up so I can face everybody. My name is Deb Rickner. I've been in Monkton for 33 years. I was the art teacher in Monkton for 10 years, and I've been the art teacher in Bristol for 35 years. I'm retiring this year after 35 years, and I watched the entire board meeting in the hopes that maybe the arts in the district will be addressed, because they are, I don't know if any of you know this, but they're attritioning my job and making a high school teacher come down and teach my job in 2.5 days instead of 3.5 days, which is impossible. Bristol's the biggest district, the biggest school in the district. And the reason why I'm pointing that out is that's where they're making the cuts, through attrition. They're not giving Bristol a dedicated art teacher because they need to save money. But I haven't seen a single coach or coordinator or central office person leave. And that's unacceptable, just unacceptable. But what I wanted to emphasize is that I watched that whole board meeting and I was stunned from the beginning, from the whole way the Starksboro people came in. They were advocating like crazy because they had the background. I mean, they've done this before. You guys had it all organized. And I mean, the whole public speaking in the beginning was Starksboro, 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 and Starksboro. It was long, very long, some of them. And then when the discussion started about the closing the schools, and it was immediately, well, Monkton should close, not Starksboro. And it did feel like it was pitting towns against towns. And I'm glad that we kind of, there was an apology and you guys are here, and thank you for the support. But what I wanted to emphasize, really important, we're talking about closing schools. In Starksboro, the Starksboro people are all about community and how important it is to have community, and we're all about community. If a school is closed, if we don't stay the status quo, if a school is closed, and I said this at the public speaking at the end of the meeting too, it's not going to be Starksboro anymore. It's not going to be Monkton anymore. It's going to be Lincoln no, sorry, not Lincoln. It should be. Monkton, New Haven, Bristol, and Starksboro kids in this building, if we save this building. It's going to be the same in Starksboro, whatever. It's going to be a different kind of community because of this grade banding thing, which I actually think could be an incredible thing myself. Because of maybe we can make an intense, the education of these kids in this district is not equitable. You've got classes in Starksboro in first grade that have maybe, I don't know how many kids are in the first grade classes, but I know it's a lot less than what's in Bristol. I mean, Bristol classes are 20, 21 kids. I know that there's a lot less in Starksboro, but that's not equitable. Teachers are struggling to give the services to the kids in the different schools, and an answer has to come about. We have to figure something out. But the most important thing is we need to stop talking about it as if we're closing Monkton School, because even if it stays open in the second and third option, it's not Monkton School anymore. It'll be different teachers, it'll be a different community. It could be very exciting to bring all the towns together. At the same time, just like everybody else, I have 3 kids who are incredibly successful from going through Monkton School in Mount Abe. And the thought of losing our central community center is scary, and I would prefer not to change anything. But if we can't afford it and the kids aren't getting the proper education, and that's the most important thing, is the kids. Are the kids getting equitable services in every single school? And they're not. It's different. Every single school is different, and they get to the high school, and even the high school teachers notice it. That things are different coming from each school. So this whole grade banding thing is cool, but it's more a decision of which building stays open to house K through 2 or K, and obviously Bristol would probably be the 3 through 5 or whatever, but just pointing that out because it's not a community thing, it's a physical decision thing. It's not, we need to keep our community together type thing. Now, this is amazing. there's as many people here as town meeting. I wish we could do this more often. Let's have more reasons to get together like this. It'd be nice. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Kate Bosley. I'm an alumni of this school, and I have found this to be a really powerful meeting. You're a really articulate bunch, and I'd like to know ways, as a no longer Monkton resident, to know how other alumni can really support this and make sure that your faces are seen and your voices are heard. Is it helping to get signs so that there's visibility in our town? Is it making sure the media is here covering this so that other towns, pardon me, I have a cold too, who are facing this can kind of band together and capitalize on how well-spoken this community is? I think I would like the school board to see this crowd here and to know the power in their community that's already here showing up. So please let me know ways that we can support you on a broader scale.
I have the mic. I want to push back a little on the age bending. I'm Tony Carrico. I volunteered in the lower grade, like kindergarten, first grade, in literacy here. I also in the higher grades in the Four Winds program, 4, 5, 6. And the age mixing is great. I wouldn't want to see banding. For me, banding is musical chairs, we're going to have to do a ton of administration to make it happen. And it's going to mean busing. And if we're busing, we might as well close schools, right? I mean, I think age banding is just the foot in the door to closing schools anyway. And I don't see it as being positive for the kids. The little kids temper the hormones of the bigger kids, and the little kids look up to them and down to them. They're on the buses together. The mixed grades are great. I think it would be, I don't see age banding as being a good thing.
Hi, I'm Susan Davis, 43 years, one kid in Monkton, Mount Abe, and another one at Mount Abe. So my question was actually here. My question was actually for Steve Heffernan. I will be emailing him, but this is what I'm going to ask him about. Does the state offer a template to school boards and communities for analyzing not only their physical plant, but their aging through their district, and perhaps tempered by teaching style? Has the state created a guide for towns? Is there a white paper or an actual template that one could use to analyze each school within the district and the district as a whole and against other districts? How are they helping us do good planning? So that is what, and if somebody has something specific they'd like me to include in that email, just grab me later. Well, come see me. That's what I do. I'm retired. I'm an architect. And well, how do people get buildings? Somebody plans them. How do they do that? Needs and space analysis. So this question is bigger than a physical plant question, but it gives us, or at least for me, the way I look at it, gives me a place to start looking at it, and there are plenty of educators here in our town who can fill in those parts that I don't know anything about, or I'd be a teacher. Thank you.
My name is Deb Gaynor. I've been in Monkton for 40 years, but I do not have any kids, so I don't have kids that went through the schools here. However, being part of the community has always been very important to me, and I serve on, or have served on a bunch of different committees. I would like to ask the school board members who are present here to reflect upon whether or not the message that has been given in this room is loud and clear. I don't need a specific answer from each of you, but I think if you are at all confused, that anybody in this room could clarify for you. how we feel about our school. I would also like to point out that I think it's a tremendous service that a few community members did to pull this together in just a few days, and I'd like to thank them. And I'd like to ask them to reach out to New Haven, because I think what the district has done is strategize a very divisive policy of dividing us from each other as towns. They started with Lincoln and drove Lincoln out of the supervisory union, and their next focus was on Starksboro because Starksboro is small. I'm surprised that they went to Monkton next instead of New Haven next, but it is very obvious to me that New Haven will be next, and I think that it would behoove us to reach out to them now and say, come join us before you're the ones having a meeting like this. I would also like to make everybody think about, why do we have district leadership that is more focused on dividing us than on bringing us together?
Roger Wallace, former Monkton Central School board member, also one individual of a group that a long time ago that worked very heavily to get this town to support the addition and renovation of this school. Exactly what I have lots to say, but I'll try to keep it to more recent. 2015 school redistricting was mentioned earlier. If I recall the conversation correctly at the state level, the intention was to consolidate and have fewer supervisory groups. I would say that. What really ended up happening after a lot of special interest lobbying was basically lipstick on a pig. We ended up, for our school district, we had 5 school districts with Mount Abe, and 5 towns, and then we still ended up with one school district rather than 5, but it didn't any change. The only thing that changed was that the superintendent, rather than going to 6 different school board meetings, went to 1 school board meeting. Otherwise, it was pretty much the same. At the state level, they initially envisioned that there would be a larger consolidation. So the point I'm trying to get at is, the argument that was made at that time that resulted in not larger consolidation was to maintain local control. And following up on what Deb was just saying, do we really feel like we have local control with our school district if our school district has driven away 1 school and is threatening to close 2 more? And so we would do well to kind of rethink the structure of the district, and especially on the high school level. I can say one reason we did this addition renovation was we were looking at a school population in Monkton of 225 kids. And we needed to expand the school then. And our kids went through at that level, and when the school was a lot more, had a larger student population, and even when our children got to Mount Abe couldn't fully serve their needs. There was limited selections. And now with the lower student population at the elementary school and the high school level, and this is especially for the parents of elementary school students now, what's going to happen if the district as a whole, the population keeps going down, and Mount Abe can offer fewer and fewer classes, fewer and fewer electives, things like that. We need to do 2 things. 1, look at consolidating more on a high school level, so that when the students get to the high school level, they have more academic options available to them and better academic options. And we need to look at a different district structure. So like my task to the school board is to think about, 1, that the superintendent works for you, okay? The district works for you, and you represent us, you work for us. So you're asking, multiple times it's been said, well, we should come to the meetings. This is us coming and articulating our perspective. And we're asking you to represent our perspective as a town, and think outside the box. Don't take the superintendent's directives as to, look at this school. I've heard expressions, well, this school, all schools are, no school is safe. Schools are being pitted against each other. We shouldn't be pitting elementary schools. We should be looking at a larger thing in regards to the district. And I guess I'll close with this, which is the state at multiple times, when they do studies, they say we should look at larger academic different districts, larger superintendent districts. When the study comes down to the superintendent districts, we say, oh no, we can't obtain any savings with it, we shouldn't look at that. So I think those studies on a smaller level are self-serving. The ones at the state level are less self-serving. They don't have that special interest in there. And I guess that's it for now.
Put down my knitting, I don't want to stab myself. So my name's Marilyn Cargill. I've also lived in Monkton for 40 years. I've been a Girl Scout and leader here. I've been involved in the school. I was the PTO, whatever, for years. It's how I met some of my very best friends in this town, was through this school. And I think that's probably true for a lot of parents in this town. That's where you're going to meet the people that you're going to grow up with and you're going to know forever. So schools have a lot of things they're doing for us. But I did want to say one thing, because we talked a lot about needing evidence. We want to see the evidence of what's going on. And I've heard a lot of people say tonight, this town will never vote to close this school. And I think that's true. But what I want to tell you is in the town plan, and I am the co-chair of the Planning Commission, in the town plan of Monkton, we vote as a town. Every one of you gets to vote on whether we accept our town plan or not. In a lot of towns, the Planning Commission creates a town plan and the select board agrees if they're going to keep it or not. But that is not how we do it here. Here we all vote. That town plan was written in 2007, 2014, 2021, and 2025. Under education and childcare, you will see that a goal of every one of those years is to support this school as a vital part of this community. And that town plan has passed overwhelmingly every single time. We hold public hearings and we say, what about this town plan is causing you any amount of angst? What do you want to talk about? And I think John said he's heard earfuls of what people want to talk about. I've had my own share of those. Never once has anyone said, I want to talk about the school and the fact that this town is going to support it. It's never come up. The town plan has been passed overwhelmingly every single time. So when we say this town will not vote that down, it's not wishful thinking, it's evidence-based that we know this town supports that in the town plan and has since 2007. And the only reason it's not before that is we didn't have town plans. Right? So this is evidence-based, and that's something I think we can all feel really good about. And if you're talking to somebody about it, you can talk about it from a perspective of evidence and not just your own personal feelings.
Hi there, my name is Chuck Soul. I'm very new to the community. I've only been here for 2 years. I guess it's 3 years. 2 of that was building a house. It actually feels like I was here for 1 year, just arriving. So I've been an educator my whole life. I've worked in schools, worked in small schools, worked in large schools. I'm really passionate. I've been thinking about this all week long. And I was in a smaller community with a little different twist to this, but similar. And I think it's really important that we apply pressure back. Pressure's been put on us. It's important that we respond. Whether it's thinking out of the box, coming up with different options so that we have another plan. And that pressure is important, really important in how things will unfold.
So going all the way back, because I like what Roger said, and I like the idea of putting pressure back, and it's why I said, well, we don't need to join LSD, maybe we should be the 5-town elementary school district, And then you have the Mount Abraham School District, High School District. We can start pushing back by just pushing that idea and saying, you know what, we're going to combine these schools and we're going to manage them the way we want to at an elementary focused level. So I love that. Let's create a whole new one and create a community of the 5 towns. And then what Roger said was what I really wanted to say before we left. We're not a democracy. We're a representative. You are our representatives. I do not want this to become, okay, let's count noses. Monkton brought 122 people, but Starksboro brought 126. That's not the way go back and look at what the Greeks said. That's chaos. Democracy is chaos. We have representatives for a reason. You don't want us all showing up with our pitchforks and torches. That never worked out well. And we don't want to be fighting Starksboro. We want to be working together. And that's what we need our representatives to do, work together. And I have said it, and thank you for somebody else saying it. The superintendent works for you. We are his boss. Used to be the teachers used to run their own classroom. When the classes got too complicated, they hired an administrator. That became the principal. Principal didn't do education. Principal made sure the school doors were open, the coal was in the stove. Wow, I'm getting old school. Then it got a little bit too big and we went to a district. But they were supposed to be working for the teachers so that the teachers could be able to teach. No, now we turn that entire pyramid upside down. It's as if everybody works for the superintendent and then everything else is at the bottom. And I'll tell you, having watched it, it's the teachers at the bottom, and worse than that, it's the students under that. Because all I hear about is money and this and that, and then I look at the Mount Abe and I look at we've got great entrances to all the schools now. We've got, and if you go to Bristol Elementary, you'll love this one. You can go down every hallway, and there is a Bose speaker, like 5 of them in every hallway. Beautiful big speakers hanging on the wall, nicer looking than that. They were never able to incorporate that system into the intercom system, so they don't use it. There's money like that just seeping. I mean, just look into that one thing. They probably spent $150,000 on speakers that never got used. I agree with the pushing back, and I think there's ways we can do it, but it shouldn't be about who shows up with the most busloads of people. That I have a fear with.
All right, so I gave myself a crash course on all of this stuff over the last week. And one of the things that really stood out to me is that something you said, Karen, in the parking lot here last weekend, which is, excuse me, that we're being completely short-sighted by even doing this study because of all the studies that have already been done, but also because at the state level, there's a lot being done that is not even going to take effect for another year or two. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, because I think that that really makes a big difference in this whole discussion, because we haven't given this enough time for the state to actually do the things, and they're already starting to save money. So we need to talk about that, and we need to understand why this is so short-sighted.
So one of the things, in terms of some of the things the state's doing in this bill, there's this concept of shared services among a bunch of different districts, trying to consolidate some of the functions. We've been talking about that for a while. But more to the point, I think it's May the 4th, one of the subcommittees of the board, we're going to bring in some folks to talk about this, to see how we can reduce some costs through sharing functions with Middlebury, with Virginia, some other places, transportation, business office services, that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in how that might impact, might be of some benefit, or you just want to learn more about it. That'll be coming up on the 4th. That's a Monday. Couple of weeks. It might be pretty informative about how we can save some money in ways other than closing schools.
So the state is doing transformational work in a lot of different areas: healthcare, housing, education. I think one of the goals is to get to a foundation formula. So what we've been thinking about as a state since the late 90s is how to get equitable education to every student. And it starts out with great intentions, and then it gets off kilter. So for right here and right now, I think one of the things the Education Task Force did figure out is that these CESAs will save money, and they also start getting cooperative discussions going on. I think it's really important for this area to think about the secondary level and how you could consolidate and offer more things at the secondary level. That is where that's where the shortfall is, and that's why it's the thought of closing elementary school could fix that problem is just not correct. But that is the driver. That's what's going on. In 2019, there's been so many studies and so much community involvement, and we were making the point that the superintendent you're the boss of him, not the other way around. It's really important to keep that in mind, and then they're the boss of you, kind of. But it's very hard in this governance structure of pre-K through 12 or K through 12 to really get education quality and cost economy right for each of those educational strata. So the elementary strata, having a separate school board, collective school board with that focus and that attention, and then the middle school, and then the 9 through 12, really offering each of those strata good, thoughtful school board governance, good implementation of educational quality standards is really important. That's not a governance structure we have right now. And I always thought it was asking the school board too much to do what you're, in the present structure you have, are being asked to do. It's really hard to keep your eye on all those balls qualitatively, effectively. But you guys are great. The work you're doing is amazing. It's very complicated, and I feel like you're really listening to this group. So, anyways, there's a lot going on, but it does seem premature to do yet another study, when we're probably going to be changing things.
I want to thank you, and also, I'm sorry I missed your name in the white hat. But I think it's a good point, because I've had that question, like, why are we doing this work now? Should we wait? And we've repeatedly heard we can't wait for them. We've waited for them, and we can't wait for them, and that may not be the right answer. But what I wanted to speak to is what you just said, and what Mr. Rickner and Mr. Wallace said about us being the boss of the superintendent. That's true. It's true, but how many people are really familiar with policy and governance? Yeah, it's very frustrating. It's the model that we use as a school board, and I encourage you guys to look into it a little bit more. But basically, we can, I don't know what the word you would use. I know you have frustrations with P&G as well. I do. I do so much to the point, our strategic plan is very important to me, but it's even more important to me because of my frustrations with policy and governance, and that's why I joined the Strategic Planning Commission, planning board like you did. I think you did too, Barb. It's the three of us. But when it comes to policy and governance, we have really two avenues in which we can assert authority over our superintendent. It's the ends policy and the executive limitations. And you can see them on the MAUSD website under the board's tabs under policy and procedures. The ends policy and executive limitations. it's really not that much power. And we've got our hand, yes, and that's, and we've talked about it a little bit. And I know what you've alluded to, Herb, in your conversations, and I get very frustrated too. And that'd be a whole nother undertaking, right? But I just wanted to point that out when you say that we're the boss of the superintendent. Us as a board, we've gotten our hands slapped a few times for breaking policy because we went beyond our authority in asking the superintendent to do things. And so it can feel very uncomfortable. But I hear you guys, and I want you to know that we do share very similar frustrations.
I just want to say that actually Patrick Reen, I asked him that exact question, and he sent me an email and said that they don't really have any power other than to set the agenda. He understands that to be the case, as you said. And we're reminded of it. Right. So they don't.
So we don't have any representation.
Can I please say something?
You're going to be quick?
Yes, but he just walked up, so we can grab the mic.
I would like to point out that Patrick Green is the superintendent that established policy government in our district. And ever since then, the policy government has been a problem. And so this lack of power actually was established with the current superintendent, and that needs to be addressed.
So I just say, it is a little strange right now. And what I think Kylie is really pretty articulate in talking about is, some of that strangeness. I think a lot of members are a little frustrated about that and trying to work to change that. We just need to, keep working on that.
Now explain, now that we all have heard this, what can we do to help you
Well-
make real change?
Well, I think you should articulate what you're saying. Go to the meeting and say, this is what I like about administrative costs, or this is what I don't like about policy governance.
What will that do?
Or
How is the change made? Who can make the change? Where is the pressure?
You.
Eventually, board members have.
A vote of no confidence in Patrick Green.
How about Patrick Green comes to one of our meetings?
Yeah. How about that? How about we did it with Evelyn Howard. How about a vote of no confidence?
No, David Adams.
David Adams,
You're
excuse
saying
me.
you don't get to control it.
David
He
Adams,
does,
vote of no
then
confidence.
something's got to change.
And we've had a lot of board education on the P&G system, our model. I was not aware of it when I joined the board, and many board members aren't, and it's very frustrating. Our meetings are often 4 or 5 hours long. We're doing a lot of work. And more work needs to be done. I'm not saying we don't want to do the work. We're pulled in a lot of directions, but when we hear the community like this, it really helps us, it really guides me personally at least to know where we need to focus.
It's a good gut check.
Exactly.
It takes some time sometimes, but Starksburg's coming out, has been coming out for 8 months now. So that's a little long, I think, but people coming out to talk to the board does matter. I know people coming over to the legislature to talk to legislators. It does matter because people do listen. Maybe not as much or the right way, but in terms of that's really what makes a difference. That's how you get pressure.
But the person who created
that the board can set the agenda. So if the board sets the agenda rather than saying, let's study closing these 2 schools, you set the agenda saying, let's push back on the district administration, let's look at cutting, or consolidating at the district level, then you have control. So, but if you just let the superintendent say, we should put this item on the agenda that says we should study closing Bean and Monkton, then yeah, you've just basically thrown away what we voted you to do, which is to represent us.
To an extent, if it's within the ends and executive limitations, we can do that within our agenda.
Maybe the agenda needs to talk about that. Yeah. The fact that you have no control.
And we've brought it up, and we brought it up when we were reviewing the ends policy,
Right.
and we said we're gonna do it in strategic plan, so I jumped on that committee, and I know you did. Yeah, still trying to figure it out. Like I said, P&G is new to me, I'm still learning about it. So for me to just join the board and be like, this is awful, didn't quite feel right as a new board member. But it is very frustrating, and so when I hear you guys saying that, it just kind of reignites that frustration.
Is this shared across all board members, the frustration, or are some people for it? Because if you're all against it, I don't understand how you can't change it.
I think there are a few who may think it's great.
Yeah,
I would agree with that.
There's some like trying to strike that balance, right? Like, as a board, we can't, it's not our, this isn't our day job as each board member, so we can't try to control every little thing that's going on. And so I guess that's some of the appeal to policy and governance. You guys feel free to do that as well.
We're going to take 3 more.
Thank you, John. Robin Hops, I've lived in Monkton for 36 years. I don't have children, but I always voted for the schools. And I'm a Monkton mentor, and I have been for 3 years. And I can see what a real hub this school is to our community in so many ways that I had no idea. I knew the school was here, I knew kids that went here, kind of like I was peripherally involved, and I still am. I don't work here, I don't have kids, but to be in the mentoring program and have that kind of access to this school. Okay, so we all know how much we love the school and our community. I had to write this down. So if education is our priority at the state level, why don't we ask, what would it take to keep the schools open? That's my question. Instead of all of these reasons, they're not even, I don't even understand why we're having this conversation that because Starksboro is not going to close, Monkton is going to close. I imagine myself on the phone with a friend in another state, or my brother or somebody, and saying, oh, guess what's going on in Monkton? The state decided that schools have to close because they're expensive. So one school said, we're not going to close, so now Monkton is supposed to close. This is kind of like a directive. And I haven't had this conversation with somebody on the phone yet, but I'm just imagining. And they're going to say, what? Why? And so I think that's what we're all saying here, is why. And I would like to pose the question, what would it take to collectively and honestly, authentically say, what would it take to keep all the schools that want to stay open, open?
Hi, Larkin Brown. In and out on childcare, so I apologize if this idea has been already floated, but hearing you talk about policy and governance, I've been affected watching the meetings, looking back at meetings, thinking about the fact that the chair and vice chair are both Bristol reps. And I wonder about there being or being a clause or something in policy and governance about that those positions not being held by reps of the same town.
Hey everybody, I'm Michael Wright. I've been in Monkton about 5 years. I got 2 kids currently attending Monkton here. One's going to Mount Abe next year. I have family that went to Starksboro and Mount Abe, over the many years, family that have been in Starksboro for 30 years. What seems to me, there's a number of different issues. as there always is in this kind of political situation that we find ourselves in. But I just don't see how changing what we have here in Monkton is going to make education better for our kids. I think this school has so many amazing things that it's doing, and I see it in my kids. I went to school when I was a kid in New York City. It was a very different school system that we had. And seeing something as beautiful in this area as this school is, and talking about closing it when we already have a study that has shown there's other areas that we can save money, and when there have been plenty of examples of closing schools actually increasing costs anyways, it just seems like we're talking about the wrong thing when we're talking about closing schools, about having people leave communities because there's less teachers, there's less tradespeople, because there's no reason to be in it for some people if there's not a school there, especially with young children. So I, again, would like to encourage you to put something else on the agenda besides what school is going to close next, and start focusing on how we can save money by keeping these schools open for our kids. Because that's what's best for our kids, is to have a closed school and a community. And what we have in this amazing school here, that seems like the most important thing. I don't think anyone in this room would say, yeah, I want our kids to have less good of an education. We all want the best education for our kids. And I think that needs to be the most important thing. And our focus needs to be on how we can keep these schools open, because that is what is best for our kids' education.
Two things. We have a successful model for, sorry to get away from the speaker, a successful model for schools here. Our school is growing, our community is growing. We're bucking the trend in Addison County and probably in Vermont as a whole. So to consider closing the school that is attracting people and feeding people into Mount Abe seems counterproductive if you're worried about keeping it big enough to justify the staff to offer a wide variety. The second thing on policy and governance, policy and governance is a great concept done right. I'm chairman of a successful manufacturing firm in Ohio. We try to follow that. When our president or when a shift supervisor, whoever, when they're doing the job right, they get a lot of leeway to do it as they see fit. Done right is the big part. When things break down, that's when the higher up has to step in. The last time I made this point was when David Adams was driving teachers out of the school left and right. And I said, it doesn't matter whether you're policy and governance or not, you can't allow a person in authority to drive away your most valuable resource. So your policy and governance by choice. There is nothing mandating you to follow the policy and governance model. You can either get rid of the model, or you can say, no, we like it as a concept, but we recognize there are times we have to step in and make a course correction. So if the way that is written is that it's a hard and fast line and you can't cross it, then you need to rewrite your governance model, because it's your responsibility to step in when things aren't going the way you think is right or the way your towns think is right.
There have been a few things said for grade banding, but I wanted to ask a little bit about, has there been any consideration to what happens outside of the classroom? A lot of the pros we hear are it's great for the kids in the classroom, it's easier for teachers, but the reality is what happens to extracurriculars when families are having to deal with their kids now going to school 2 towns away or 1 town away. A family with 2 or more kids spread out through ages is now dealing with extracurriculars at potentially 3 schools, and I think there's a very significant impact to the student's ability to thrive outside of the classroom, and that's extremely important to weigh as well. And the last thing I had as a question is, I'm sure the 3 of you guys are now aware of the petition we've been circulating. I'm curious if you have signed it, and if you have not, will you?
That was a question I had when I got here, is I don't know if we're supposed to sign it. Yeah, I don't know.
You are taxpayers in Moncton, and we would like to know your stance on the matter.
Can we sign it?
Why not?
Why not? You're free.
Okay.
On that note, talking about the petition, before we wrap up tonight, first, a huge thank you to this group. Give yourselves a hand. I'm really impressed with all of you here and all of the really thoughtful and respectful questions you've all asked. If you want to continue this conversation, our group, it's been, what are we called again? We've been around for a week. But anyway, go to our website, savemcs.org. Devin, put your hand up. Artfully crafted this website in a matter of days. Thank you, Devin. On this site, in addition to loads of data and sourced articles, there's also a letter generator. So if you're someone like me that's less about public speaking and public questions and more about drafting your thoughts, we have a tool on there to help you do that, as well as contacts to each of these folks to keep their inboxes full. So there are ways to keep engaging with us. If you want to stay in the loop and receive updates from us, please go to our website or email us at monctonsaveourschools@gmail.com, and I'll get you loaded into our subscriber list. So we'll continue the conversation. Yes, this Thursday, Mount Abe School Board meeting. See you there.